Welcome to Earth Politicos. Here's the roadmap for today. Let's get started. Let's start with the government structure. Now, most powers are divided between the National Assembly and the President, and there's also a judicial branch. The current constitution of Ecuador was made in 2008. Let's go into further detail with the National Assembly. It is unicameral and it replaced the National Congress after 2008. It has a variety of legislative powers and it is led by the PAIS Alliance. The last election for this happened earlier this year. The president is the head of state and government and is relatively very powerful. An example of this is the veto power, which is absolute and cannot be overturned by the assembly, although there's a partial veto, which is vetoing only part of a bill, and it can be overturned by 2/3 of an assembly. He can also demand referendums, which are very common in Ecuador, and he can appoint the cabinet. The current president, Rafael Correa, has been president since 2007, and the president is elected to a system which we will go through later. Also, elections happen every 4 years. Other important organizations include the cabinet, which is selected by the president, requiring no approval by the assembly, and the constitutional court, which interprets the constitution. Wow, that was slow. Now let's move on to the election system. The president is elected through a runoff voting system, and the assembly is elected through 3 different systems. Earlier this year, there was the first round of the presidential elections and the assembly elections. In the assembly, there are 137 seats which are divided into 3 unequal groups. The first group, consisting of 116 seats, are chosen from single-member districts using first past the post, or whoever gets the most votes wins. The second group, made of 15 seats, are chosen using proportional representation. The last group is made up of overseas voters, and there's 6 seats using 3 two-member districts. Let's go into a little more detail about the first past the post system, which is what the first group uses. This is 116 seats chosen this way, and there's a simple most votes wins. However, this does result in an assembly which is not representative of the popular vote in many ways. Click here to find out more in a very short video, because I don't want to do this every time there's a first past the post voting system. Now, proportional representation chooses 15 seats, and in principle, this is a system that guarantees a representative government, which means that if you have 15% of the vote, your party will get 15% of the seats. However, small parties that, for example, get only 1% of the vote do not get any seats through the system because there's only 15 seats to go around. However, the formula that they use to divide up the seats does favor the smaller parties. In this table, you can see that the first past the post voting system is less representative of the total population than proportional representation. You can pause this video to see this table in greater detail. For presidential elections, they use a runoff voting system, which guarantees that a person will only win if they get a large share of the vote. They define large as getting at least 40% of the vote and beating your closest opponent by 10%. If any of those conditions are not met, there will be another election with the top 2 finishers of the first round. This is to prevent someone from winning because the vote got split up. As can be seen with the presidential election that happened earlier this year in Ecuador, where Lenin Moreno won 39.4% of the vote, just 0.6% short of the 40% threshold he needed to win. Therefore, on April 2nd, 2017, the top 2 finishers, Lenin Moreno and Guillermo Lasso, are going to face off against each other in a runoff election. Now it's party time, and the major parties with at least 5% of the seats which are going to be covered are PAIS, CREO, and PSC. Note that if the pace is too fast, you can pause and read the details to further understand what the parties stand for. First is PAIS, the largest party with 74 seats and 39% of the vote in February. It is led by the president, and their nominee was Lenin Moreno, who almost won the presidential election in February. They are a typical left-wing party that supports democratic socialism and a welfare state. However, they have gone against the media and used libel laws to jail media officials. President Correa led the formation of a new constitution under popular demand, and this constitution was approved under referendum. Their number of seats have gone down since election in 2013. And here's the face of Lenin Moreno. Next is the CREO party, which got 34 seats in the last election, along with 20% of the popular vote. It is led by Guillermo Lasso, who got 2nd place in the first round of the presidential election. It is a typical right-wing party, especially economically, although they do support more public education and they oppose the asylum for WikiLeaks founder Assange. They're gaining in popularity, especially since new corruption allegations and a recession have hit the PAIS Alliance. And this is Guillermo Lasso. Next is the SDP, which won 15 seats and 16% of the popular vote. It is led by this guy, but this person was the nominee for president, and she failed to enter the 2nd round. It is an economically left-wing party, and socially it leans towards the right, although views vary by person. This was their presidential nominee. Now it's time for recent politics. President Rafael Correa could not run in this election because of a specific clause in the 2008 constitution, and his party, the PAIS Alliance, has been falling in support because there have been corruption scandals and there's been a recession due to a fall in oil prices. The 2nd placer, Guillermo Lasso, has gained in support because the 3rd placer has endorsed him. This makes the election very close. This is after the first placing PAIS candidate Lenin Moreno could have won if he had scored 0.6 more. He would have gotten 40%, which is the threshold. Now it's time for a prediction, but before that, I have to mention that this election is very close and there's not a lot of polling done for this. Therefore, my prediction is very, very loose. That being said, I predict that Guillermo Lasso, the right-wing CREO candidate, will be the president of Ecuador after this election. Among the few polls that have been done, only a minority of them supports this statement. However, if this is true, this will result in a divided government because the assembly is PAIS ruled. But the president of Ecuador has a considerable amount of power, and therefore this election will be significant in Ecuador's future. You can leave suggestions in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. See you later.